So that's how I ended up in my corporate career. I was pretty much in working in prime brokerage and with hedge funds pretty much for the next 17 years from that point. And then my life again changed. There was another change. So I had a son, and my son is now 12. But at the time, he was diagnosed with autism. And so right around that time, my ex had stopped working at Morgan Stanley, so one of us had to stay home. So at the time, it made sense for him to stay home, and I was working. So, you know, and at the time, I had moved. My dad had retired to Ecuador. I had moved my mom and my brother to live with me in my house, you know, down further south in Jersey. So I had everyone in my family. My husband staying home. My son's diagnosis. So I was just killing myself at work because, you know, I was the main source of income. But I was an hour and a half from home every day on my commute into the city. And so, again, remembering what my father always said, you know, no matter what, make sure you're happy. And I wasn't happy. I was the most miserable person, and I didn't know myself anymore because I had always lived with this philosophy, like, always be happy. And my job, no one would ever know. I'd always go there, was like, oh, you're always so happy. Because I always work with that. You never bring your problems to work. It's all about your work ethic. And no matter what's happening in your life, you come and bring your best face to your team because they deserve that. They don't deserve to be brought down because you had a bad night or a bad whatever. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a cross to bear. So you try to make it as positive and as positive and hopeful as possible for people. So no one knew. No one at work knew about my son, and really it was really tough time for us. And I was very unhappy. And I remember sitting with my husband. I'm like, look, I don't know. I felt lost again. I'm like, I feel like I'm just in this toxic environment. Like, I'm working so hard, but I'm working to pay a house that I don't enjoy. I'm working to provide for my family that I don't see, that I don't get to spend time. My son doesn't know me, you know, because you leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're getting home at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes. I'm like, we need to change something. And again, I think everything happens for one night. I couldn't even sleep. Every night I would be on the internet looking for jobs. At the time, I think it was like Career Builder, looking for jobs in New Jersey. I'm like, if I could just work in Jersey and cut my commute, I could spend more time at home. And that's what I was doing. And out of the blue, like this little like advertisement came out, like own your own franchise, be your own boss. And that's when it was for Remedy Staffing, my business now. I'm like, this is interesting. I have no background in staffing. I mean, I've only worked in financial services, but I had a background in working with clients, and I had a background in running teams because at the time I had, you know, managed my own team. So I remember going to John, my ex-husband, and I was like, we should do this. He's like, are you crazy? I'm like, no, this is great. I'm like, you know, you have experience like running teams. I can run teams. We can work with clients, and that's what it is. That's what staffing is. You work with clients and you work with people. It's easy. So he said, no, you're crazy. Don't even think about it. Well, I can be impulsive at times, and I, you know, wake up and decide I'm doing this the same way I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm like, I'm quitting my job today. So on the train ride, I listened to this one song that motivated me like 5 times on the subway. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to walk in. I'm quitting my job today. And that's what I did. So when I quit my job, my whole family thought, man, okay, my husband, no one worked. And I was the main breadwinner, and so everyone thought I was crazy. Everyone from my in-laws to my mom and my dad, they were really worried, like, Silvia went crazy, like, what happened? She snapped. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I gained my life back. Like, we bought a little office space 3 minutes from my house. In 2011, we started the business. It just, you know, it was 3 of us. It was John, and we hired an administrative assistant, and we started July of 2011, not knowing anything. And it was the best thing that I've ever done. It really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And at the time, we thought we were going to do financial services recruiting, which there's no industry really for that in Jersey. I mean, you do that in New York, not in Jersey. But everyone's like, well, you can do warehousing. I'm like, what's that? Like, you know, a warehouse? And they're like, so, you know, we're used to working corporate America with the suit and the tie and the whatever, the heels, and now it's, no, you're going to work in a warehouse and you have to tour. So it was just a very different way of life and a very different, you know, but for me, I loved it. We just embraced it, and it was just something different, and I haven't stopped loving it. But again, life changes when you're a small business owner. You know, it's a lot of risks you take. we almost lost it all after the first year. I mean, literally, couldn't even pay for my house. I had to go to the supermarket thinking, okay, what do we really need? I mean, it was my mom, it was my brother. My brother's in high school. You know, it's, you know, you eat like five, like, you know, five, like it was 5 boys, and it was a really tough time. And so, you know, I got scared, and I got like, well, what did I do? You know, I jeopardized my whole family, my livelihood. And by the end, the turn of year 2, things really started turning around. I mean, we call it luck. We had a whole team. We got some really good accounts. We like doubled our, but we were at 2.5 million sales by that second year. The next year it was doubled to 5 million. Then we hit 10 million. Like, we did great. But a part of me was really like, you know, it was a little shell shock when you almost lose everything. And I was like, okay, you know, the business was running fine. I'm like, you know, I told my husband, my ex, I'm like, I'm going to go back to the city. We got this. We got it off the ground. Because at first he thought I was crazy. Then he loved it. And so we decided it made sense to not have all eggs in one basket. That's very important in life. You can't have all eggs in one basket. I mean, we did it, but that's a risk you take. And so I went back to corporate America. So I ran the business for 2 years, and I went back for 4. And actually, I just came back a year ago. So I've been gone from my business 4 years ago. I was gone for 4, and I just came back November of the year before. So it's been great. It's like I'm learning my business again. It was great to go back to the city. I got some more sales training because now I worked on the sales side, with hedge funds. Life is ever changing. I could look at my resume, and every 2 years, I've done something different. Another manager once said to me, you know, Silvia, I think in life what you need to do is do something 2 years, master, move on. Master it, move on. Every 2 years. So I remember I was at UBS. That was a job that I was there for the longest before I left to start the business. And I was there 8 years, but every 2 years I did something different. And some of my roles I kind of just developed on my own just from like the things that you're doing there. So that was that's something else that I've always think it's important to tell kids. Like, you don't have to be, you can create your own role. Like, if you go somewhere and you're an innovator and you really embrace yourself in the job, you start seeing, you know, there's a better way to do this, and I think we should do that, and I think we should do that. And never be afraid to speak your mind, because your ideas are valuable because you care, because you have a good work ethic. So there is not any good manager in the world that wouldn't want to listen to what you have to say. And I always tell people, like, you know, go be vocal, but first do the job, roll up your sleeves, never say no to whatever they ask you to do, unless obviously it's something unethical. But like, anything that they asked me to do, there was nothing like, oh, that's not for me. There's no shame in anything. Even till this day, I'll do anything. I mean, I've never played that, oh, somebody else can do that. It's my job, it's my business, I'll take out the trash, I'll clean the bathrooms. And now my jobs, anyone who I've ever worked for, I've always been the same way. I'll do anything as long as it's for the greater good of the team. I'm humble. I'm not too proud to do anything. And so as long as you work with that type of attitude, you're always going to, I feel, create opportunities for yourself. You can't feel like something is not worth your time. And you have to be willing to put in the work. And maybe, you know, I've hired all types of people. And sometimes I see that that's the biggest mistake. That's the biggest turnoff to anyone, whether the person that you work for and the people that you work with, when you don't want to do something. So if you expect somebody else to do it, you should be able to have done it yourself as well.